All right, hello and welcome to I'm Ready to Invest, Own My Own Home, and Now What? So we're super excited. We've started having some investor meetings and a lot of the same questions have come up. And so we've kind of taken those questions and turned it into this class. So you may be watching in preparation for your investment meeting for us. So we are certainly excited to sit down with you when that happens. And so we're going to go ahead and get started today. And so for you guys all, so you can take notes during this class, you can download and print a worksheet here. So we cover a lot of information in these classes. So if you want to press pause and grab this worksheet, it is here for you. And you guys know that we are a faith-based group of people here. And so I'm going to have Darren pray us in, and then we'll get started with some biblical investing principles.
Dear God, thank you for this glorious day. Thank you for the breath in our lungs and for all the people that are able to join us. Pray that this is a wealth of knowledge that we can share with everyone and they can multiply their blessings and build their kingdom in the way that you see fit, Lord. Say this thing in your name. Amen.
All right. So as you know, we are newer Christians and we are always digging into the Bible to make sure that this phase of our business, we are not striving, but we're co-laboring with God. And so we're looking at investment principles. And so I found these few principles here. So I'll start with the principle of sowing and reaping. And this is in 2 Corinthians 9:6. And this is, remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. And whoever sows generously will also reap generously. So we're really going to dig into this one today.
And the second one is about leaving a legacy, Proverbs 13:22. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous. And so we'll talk about, part of the reason of our investment and is about leaving a legacy and inheritance for our children and our children's children.
Absolutely. And then stewardship of our resources. Darren and I are really, really being convicted of this lately, to really understanding exactly where our money is going, where do we have room to make more impact. And this is in Matthew 12:21. His master replied, "Well done, you good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness." And so I was listening to this song this morning. One of the verses is, "I've lived with plenty and I've lived with less." And that is so relevant to where Darren and I are today. So pre-illness and pre our move to South Carolina, we were living in an abundance of wealth, but a lack in so many areas of our life. And what this season of us making significantly less from what we have is really shown us that we can be more in peace with less. But God is also challenging us by getting in a very skinny space, especially with starting our flip business, to where we are being forced to literally figure out where every dollar goes. And it ties exactly back into this, that we need to do well with this less to be blessed with more with Him moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And I guess hand in hand, or to follow up, that is multiplication of resources, right? So if you're not a good steward of your resource, you can't multiply your resource. So Luke 19:17, "Well done, my good servant," his master replied, "because you have been trustworthy in a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities," right? So God is not going to trust you with 10 cities until you can prove that you can take care of a little. Which goes back to Aaron's point of the stewardship of resources, right? You've got to take care and know what you have and what you can do with before you're going to be given more.
Well, and again, Darren and I, guys, we are super in the thick of this. So we have started this flipping business, employing men in recovery, and we are in a chaos stage right now. And we are working really hard to turn this into a business. And there is no way that God is going to give us the resources and abilities to handle a second crew and running 2 projects at once if we are not running one project well and seamlessly. So we just want you to know we are learning a lot of this right alongside of you. So, but good look at the Bible there. And you know I love goals. I have a God and Goals training in here I did last year. And so I think it's so important that we start in the mindsets. Investing does take a change in how we look at money and maybe how we've thought about money. So what I'd like you to do right now is add to the chat or pause this video and decide what is your primary financial goal for taking the leap and the risk and the chance on investing and multiplying your resources? So are you looking for cash flow, long-term wealth? Do you need a tax reduction strategy? Are you a high W-2 income earner? Are you looking to pay off debt or build some financial margin? So what is that for you? And next, we're going to look at lifestyle. When we talk about investing, especially in the short-term rental space, there is a large lifestyle component to it for us. We use these properties when they are open, but here's just some other things. So I want you to pause here and identify, what is your lifestyle goal of investing? That freedom of time, guys, that is really what Darren and I are after. How do we have the ability financially and with our time to be able to say yes? If someone came to us tomorrow and said, can you get on a plane tomorrow and go on this mission trip? We want to be able to say yes. So freedom of time, location, or choice, right? You're only doing work that you feel like the Lord is calling you into, or just that, being able to have more provision for your family in that daily need space so you can enjoy your lifestyle. And spiritual goals, these are so important, right? Is your goal right now? Our goal is, what do we call it? Extreme stewardship. We want to know where every dollar goes. And later this afternoon, we are looking at our entire portfolio. We're going to start figuring out exactly how much equity we have so we can start moving stuff that is not serving our ultimate goal. Leaving that legacy, giving generously. Darren and I are really feeling called that will be part of our life, and our goal is to be a generous giver. Can you use your platform for kingdom impact? How do you live fully on purpose to God and experience that freedom to serve? So again, pause, think about your financial goal, a lifestyle goal, a spiritual goal, and if there are more, add them. Getting clarity on what you're prayerful for and where you believe God is leading you is so important in order for you to actually activate.
All right. Well, as the class is titled, I own a home and I want to invest. Now what? So, how can owning a home help you get into investing? So equity is one of our favorite ways, or most people's way, to get into investments in the beginning. So equity in your home is your home's value minus what mortgage you still owe on it, right? So if your home is valued at $300,000, if you could sell it on the open market for $300,000, and you have a $200,000 loan balance, you have $100,000 in equity. So on average, how much do people have in equity in the U.S.? In the U.S., it's $302,000. Most of our folks here are South Carolina and Colorado. So average home equity in South Carolina is $93,000, and the average home equity in Colorado is about $218,000.
I just thought, right, this is exciting, guys. Like, that's a lot of ability for people to access. So I got super, super excited. You guys know I'm a number geek. So, and hello, Kristen, I'm excited you're here. And you guys know mindset is big for me. And so when we think about equity, and this is exactly why we are today doing a deep dive into our rental portfolio, is because equity is soldiers who are not working. And with the rate of inflation, you're actually losing value in your equity by not putting it to work. And the mindset shift that I want you to think about with your equity is it's not spending it, it's repositioning. So you're not losing your equity, right? You're not losing your 90,000, your 100,000, your 300,000. You're transferring it. So let's say you're like, okay, I'm going to enter and I need $40,000 to buy my first $200,000 rental, right? You're taking that $40,000 from your primary house and you're moving it into a rental. So you are not losing the equity. I think a lot of people are just like, oh gosh, I'm losing my safety net. You're just transferring part of your safety net. So I really want you guys to pray on that and just Lord, are you wanting my soldiers that I have to go to work for me? And then this is where I really, really wanted to dig into. So this is that 2 Corinthians, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. Whoever sows generously will also reap generously. So I connected this to you've got seeds in the barn, right? You've got a bag of seeds. Now you could sell them, right? You could sell your house to access your equity, right? but it feels safe. Like you feel safe having the seeds in the barn because you know you have something you can sell, you have something to take care of your animals, but these seeds aren't multiplying, right? They're just sitting in your barn. But what if you take those seeds and you plant them? You can grow a harvest, and the more seeds you plant, the bigger the harvest that you get. So I really just want you to think about that equity repositioning and see what between you and the Lord, if that's what he wants you to do. So you can start growing a harvest instead of staying in that safe zone. I think so many people get stuck in inaction because of the safety component. In this bag of seeds, right, if we equate that to your equity, right, the equity in your home isn't multiplying, right? And then, so I'm going to encourage you to think about planting your equity by moving it into another investment. And so let's think of another mindset shift here. Your equity isn't spending money, it's your seed money, right? So look at it as your plant, right? So your choice after today is, are you going to leave your seeds in the bag? Are you going to leave your equity in the home? Or are you going to sow it, plant it, and let God multiply it? So it's something I really want you guys to think about and pray about after this meeting. What can I do with my equity? And when you plant your seeds, it's simple math here, but now you have 2 homes increasing in value, plus you've got cash flow, hopefully from your rental. You've got 2 loans that are being down to spread that equity. And now you've got additional tax benefits, right? And that's just from 2 houses. And then this is my favorite because I love nerdy math when it comes to real estate. So look at this. This is so exciting. So let's say your first investment property is a $300,000 house, and you've got an annual appreciation of 4%, which is pretty conservative. Your home value in 10 years will be in that $450,000 range. So let's say that you've made $150,000 in appreciation in that 10 years, right? So this is our 10-year wealth build. And then you take that loan math. So you've 300,000, you bought it for 20% down. The interest rate, let's say, was 7.5%. So you had a loan amount of 240,000. In 10 years, right? Because you build your first 10 years, you don't pay down as much in your loan balance, but you pay off $32,000 in your loan balance. So if you took that 144 from your appreciation, your house going up in value, and you added your $32,000 of your loan being paid down, your 10-year wealth build just by repositioning your equity is $176,000. And then I'm like, well, what if you did that times 10? What if every year you decided to add a rental? That is almost a $2 million wealth build in 10 years just from repositioning. Guys, we're not talking about tax benefits today. We're not talking about cash flow. This is purely your appreciation plus your loan pay down math. So like, if that doesn't get you excited, like that gets me super excited for you. And so I just really want you to just think about these numbers.
All right. So how do you figure out how much equity you have? Well, first thing is ask your favorite realtor. Most realtors will be able to pull comparable values for you and give you a pretty approximate value of your house in the current market. And if you are getting equity out of your house, any lender is going to require a bank appraisal for that. And most of bank appraisals on a refinance type loan instead of a purchase loan are going to be pretty conservative. So you may not get the appraisal that you're looking for, but it should be, close.
So simplified language there, just being that, let's say your favorite realtor like Kristen comes over and says your house is worth $300,000, but the bank, when it comes out to do the appraisal to take the money or the equity out of your house, maybe they say your house is only worth $275,000. It's not that Kristen is wrong, but the sale value of your house and what the bank is going to give you to lend on your equity are generally a different number, right? Because they want to be conservative. They don't want to over leverage their house or over leverage the bank's position in your house. And you guys, Kristen's on here. She's a realtor. She's wonderful. We have an entire process that we do for our clients called a real estate review that literally will take your clients through their equity and how to position it and how to invest. So watch that if you feel like this is a service you would like to provide for your clients. I think it is super valuable. This was our one touch Darren and I do every year that led us to the making $40 million a year in sales. So highly, highly recommend this.
All right. So with all that being said, how do you access your equity? Well, we've got a couple of the main ways to do it here. One is a cash out refinance, basically refinancing your existing mortgage in your home. So you're replacing your current mortgage with a lot larger mortgage and pocketing that equity that you had in the house in cash. So if it's valued at 300, you owe 200, you refinance the property for 300, and you take the $100,000 cash to go then towards an investment property. The pros with that is a fixed monthly payment, just like your current mortgage, right? They're typically fixed monthly payments. The cons is you've got a new mortgage. So if you're currently at, the COVID interest rate of 2.753% and refinancing at today's rates, your mortgage payment is going to go up quite a bit. And then you've got loan closing costs with those.
Yep. And I guess the pro should be the interest is paid over 30 years. I think that's in the wrong category, right? Because then your payment should not go up as much because it's spread out over 30 years. But the interest rate is what you really, really need to know. So when you talk to your lender, really make sure that they identify, okay, I was out of this rate, I'm out of this rate, that is costing me that much more. So you can really make the decision for your family, is this additional monthly payment worth being able to have that access to that $100,000 or whatever that math is.
Yeah.
And then you can also get, and for those people with the lower COVID interest rate, this might be a good option. So you can get a second mortgage. So you have your main mortgage, right? Your $200,000 mortgage on your house. Some people can come in and give you a second mortgage for a smaller amount. So you keep mortgage one, you keep your $200,000 at your 2.7%, and then you come in and get a second mortgage of $100,000 behind it. So the pros are you keep that lower interest rate on the main portion of your house. This is useful for a one-time down payment because it is a lump sum, right? You are getting that lump sum payment. It is going to still likely have a higher interest rate potentially than your current mortgage, but also a cash out refinance will have a higher interest rate in general. And then you do have a second monthly mortgage payment. So let's say you've got a $1,500 mortgage payment on your first mortgage, and then you come in and you have a $500 payment on your second mortgage. So you have a total of now of a $2,000 mortgage payment. But this is a great option if you have a lower rate on your first mortgage.
And the other option on that, and probably what we have used the most, because most people call it a HELOC. You've heard that term quite a bit. Stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. It's similar to a second mortgage, but you're not taking out a lump sum. Your first mortgage stays in place, and the second mortgage that you have is a revolving line of credit. So just because you have $100,000 in equity, you're not getting a lump sum payment out for that entire amount. It works almost like a checking account, right? You can write a check for $5,000, pay it off, you're only paying on that $5,000. If you're using it as a down payment, and let's say you only need $60,000, you're not paying that second mortgage on your full $100,000. You're only paying that second payment on the amount that you use. The downside is they're typically variable interest rates. They're better than second mortgage. Well, they're about the same. Yeah. Sorry. And then, so they are typically variable, like prime plus 1% is pretty common. The pros are they're flexible, right? You don't have to pay on the entire amount. You can use part of it now. You can use part of it later. And then you're only paying on that portion that you do use. They're typically lower closing costs, but the cons is they're paid off on a shorter time period, so the payments can be higher. And then since it's variable, that the interest rate on that can change a little bit.
So literally, guys, think of this as like a credit card attached to your house, right? But with much better interest rate than a credit card. So you really need to know what your end goal is, because if you are for sure using it as a down payment, a cash out refinance or a second mortgage is likely the better option, because if you know that $100,000 already has a home, meaning you're going to move equity from house A to house B, you probably want that lump sum on a fixed mortgage, right? We use HELOCs a lot, especially when we're going to be in and out of something, meaning you pull it, we've got to do some updates to a house before we sell it because that money is only going to be out for a certain amount of time, right? Because we know we're going to sell this house in a year. And so, because you don't want $100,000 on a variable rate on a shorter payoff, because usually a home equity line is a 10-year payoff. So it pays off much more quickly, and that's why the payments are higher. But this can be a really good option. Or if you're in a market where you can buy a cheaper investment as your first property, so you don't have a huge chunk on here, that might be a really good option. Or also if you're like, well, gosh, I don't know what I'm going to buy, so I want access to all my 100,000 until I figure out what I'm doing. And let's say you access your 100,000 of equity and then you only spend 50,000 on a down payment. You could then at that point see about closing out your home equity line and refinancing your 50,000 into more of a secure position. So it can give you that flexibility if you just don't exactly know where you're going. Darren and I are currently using a large home equity line on our primary residence for flipping houses. But again, that money goes out, it will be out for a few months and then it will come back in. So that works really well for us. Talk to a really awesome lender, have your realtor get you in touch with a really awesome lender. We have found though that for home equity lines of credit, lenders generally do not have the best products, but credit unions do. And so I would really, really shop around. We have a client who just shopped for a home equity line and the terms were so crazy different. The closing costs, the interest rates. And so I would at least recommend getting 3 quotes on home equity lines before you pulled one.
All right. So now you pulled the equity out. Now what? A couple ways to buy your first investment property. So the first is just your standard conventional investment property loan, right? Just like a conventional loan on your primary home. An investment property, since it's not your primary, typically a lender is going to see them a little higher risk. And so the down payments are typically 20 to 25% down for the most part. You're not able to get a non-primary home for less down than that. So it's a widely available product, 30-year fixed, just like on your primary home. Most lenders will do estimated rent to offset the mortgage payment. So if the house that you're purchasing is estimated to make $1,500 in rent, they'll credit that back to your DTI as far as qualifying for the second home. Debt to income. Sometimes I just like to throw jargon around. The cons are they're typically a higher interest rate, and they do have stricter credit and DTI requirements, and then larger down payments and some of the other stuff that we'll talk about.
I did see that somebody had a 15% down investment loan product, but closing costs were a lot higher because the points were higher, the money that they're going to charge you to get the loan, and the interest rate was quite a bit higher. So almost always the less down payment that you see, the interest rate is going to go up because you're that higher risk. Yeah. So this would be where we would tell almost everybody to start, because your conventional loan is going to have the best interest rate for an investment product for starting. So Darren and I actually have maxed out, and we have 10 of these products. You can only get 10 of these, but it's backed by the government, so you're going to get the most competitive rates, and rates are going to be very similar lender to lender. So this is where we would say, initially, I would say this would be your first box to check. Like, can I get a conventional loan? Is this what I can qualify for?
Then the other one is a second home loan. This is actually how we purchased our first Airbnb short-term rental property. So second home or vacation home loan product is typically a 10% down, which is great to get into an investment property with 10% down. And there are some rules to that. It must be a second home or a vacation home. So this does not work to buy a traditional long-term investment property. The pros are it's a lower down payment and better interest rates than standard investment loans products. The benefit is if you're getting into a short-term rental, you're able to use this house as your vacation home, as a personal use vacation home, and a short-term rental as well. So it gets you into the STR short-term rental world with less cash up front as a 10% down. One of the caveats is most lenders require this home to be a certain distance away from your primary home. You can't buy a house down the street. So they want it to be in some sort of a vacation market, right? So if it's in the mountains, near a lake, near a beach, something that, or just a certain distance away from your primary home that you can say that you're going to use it as a second home for yourself. And then occupancy requirements, you must personally use it part of the year, right? If you just turn it into a long-term 12-month rental, that's not what this loan is designed for. So it must be a short-term rental that you're going to use occasionally.
Mm-hmm. So our first, if you've been to one of our other classes, we bought our first $340,000 short-term rental, 45 minutes from us in a canyon in Colorado. And we bought it for $14,000 down because we used a 10% down second loan. We negotiated additional commission, which is absolutely legal, even with the new NAR settlement. So we negotiated a 6% commission plus entirety of our closing costs covered. And the cool thing, is when you negotiate extra commission and funnel it straight to your loan, that's never funneled through you as income. So it's like tax-free income. So we literally entered our first short-term rental for $14,000 on a $340,000 house. So that math is awesome. So just for you realtors there, having a license, use it. It's awesome.
The only non-legal thing is Aaron signed my name on the contract because I was a hard no. And I think I just looked yesterday and got like 940 some odd Airbnb reviews of over 13 properties now. So
yeah,
you were right.
So I did. So the story is, he was like, there's no way you're going to get this house for that deal. And I was like, just let me try. Right. And he's like, no. And so I did. I did forge his signature on the purchase to sale contract. And so, but like I said, now we own 13 Airbnbs and it's a whole thing. So it's just kind of a funny story. And then what we've been getting into a lot lately. So if you do not look awesome on paper, which we currently do not, meaning to a lender, our income versus our debt, how we show up on taxes. Our taxes are like 150 pages now. Nobody wants to give us regular money anymore. So regular money being Fannie, Freddie, conventional loan products. Or if you just don't look good on paper, this might be an option for you. It's a DSCR loan. We have, I don't know how many of these have now. We have a couple of these. It's the debt service credit ratio loan. So down payment is still about the same, 20 to 25%, but it is approved based on your rental income, not your personal income. So you see this little bubble down here of the DSCR is greater to or equal to 1.0. Okay, that's a bunch of jargon. The simple math is if the house is going to bring in an income of $2,000 a month, if it's a 1.0 DSCR, your mortgage cannot be more than $2,000 a month. So that's a 1-to-1 ratio. $2,000 a month in income, the house costs you $2,000.
Property pays for itself.
Yep. So 1 is about the lowest that you will go. So if your numbers aren't matching up and you still want that house, you do have the option to put more money down. So it does give you, if you're like, I definitely want this house for whatever reason, and the math isn't mathing, you can put more down. So the qualification is not on your debt to income. They are going to do a simple credit pull. And if you are an investor, it is going to help you with your rates. So Darren and I will get a much better rate than a brand new investor because we have all of this portfolio and we've made hundreds of loans on time, right? But it does give you a way to enter if a regular lender says no. There's faster closings. You can have unlimited of these. So that's really awesome. It is a higher interest rate than the conventional loan product. So I would start absolutely conventional and second home loan. And I think, sorry guys, something that we missed on the second home loan, most second home loans, you have to qualify for both properties because you're saying you are going to use this. It's not just an investment. So if you have a $1,500 primary mortgage and you're going to buy a $1,500 a month second home, you have to qualify for all $3,000. So I would say start with conventional and second home loan. If you do not qualify for either one of those for whatever reason, go to DSCR. They have points and prepayment penalties. We're not going to go into that a lot today. That's a 201 class. But you do need that strong rental income to qualify. So we are only using DSCR products, but it's because we have the max conventional loans, right? So we cannot use those products anymore.
All right. Well, I don't have enough equity. Now what? So the way a lot of people get into their first investment property is by leaving their current home as an investment property and purchasing a new primary home to move in. And ways to do that. One is your FHA loan, which is your lowest down payment option to move into a new home. 3.5% down typically for an FHA loan. I guess one of the caveats with that is there are limitations if you currently have an FHA loan. Like you have to, if you're getting transferred for work or something like that, you can have a second FHA loan if you're moving to a different town. But outside of that, they're easier to qualify, lower credit, lower interest rates. The cons are they do have mortgage insurance for the life of the loan, and stricter property and condition requirements.
So for those of you who are familiar, I would absolutely start here. So if you can leave your house as a rental and move into a new house, start with FHA because you're going to get the best interest rate here. Okay. So this is a really good option if you're ready to invest, but you can't, you don't have, like I said, you don't have that 100,000 in your house. You cannot pull enough equity. And then you can also do a conventional loan, right? So you can do a conventional loan. If it's your primary residence, though, instead of 20% down, you can get it as low as 3 to 5% down. So this, a lot of pros here. You can use almost any property type. Condition is not going to matter as much. So if you're willing to do the sweat equity to earn value and equity, I mean, you guys, the amount of sweat equity that Darren and I have earned is hundreds and thousands of dollars at this point. We almost always buy something that needs love, right? Because we want to force appreciation by our work. You still get much better loan interest rates on a conventional than you would an investment property. Usually, guys, it's around 2%. So if you can get a primary house loan right now for 6.5%, you're going to see investment in interest rates in the 7.5 to 8.5%, which is a significant difference. And you can count that rental income towards your debt to income if, for example, it's a multi-unit. So think about, too, your next move, can I buy a duplex, right? You can buy up to 4 units using a conventional. So you can get a 4-plex and live in one. So really be thinking about that, right? Again, the cons, you still have mortgage insurance if it's less than 20% down, and that is a stricter debt to income requirement compared to FHA or VA. But start there. I mean, any good lender is going to tell you conventional and FHA. Do you have the option for either one? Okay. So look at getting another mortgage. And where we are, this was not so applicable in Colorado, but the USDA loan is the agricultural loan, right? Where you have no down payment assistance required. But just really think, if you're in a little bit more of a rural area, is this going to make sense to exit? When you start your real estate investing journey, you always have to be thinking about your exit. So if you're willing to live more rural, to be able to leave a house and buy a house with 0% down, are you planning on keeping the second house as a rental? And is it in a market that you can leave it as a rental? Because guys, you can do this right now 1 time per year. Literally every single year you could move and leave a rental. And if we were going to start, these were not the rules when we started, we absolutely would have moved every single year and kept a rental. So if you're willing to make the sacrifices with the dreams and the goals that we talked about earlier, if you're willing to do it, that would be a really, really smart way to do it. The cons on a USDA, you've got your geographic restrictions. It can be a slower closing time, and they are a capped income program. So you have to qualify for their income requirements. And then last one, Darren's a veteran. We have definitely used a VA loan. So VA is very similar to an FHA loan, just available for veterans at a 0% down program. So awesome product. Absolutely use it. Okay. So next is, so if you have said, you've talked to your favorite realtor, you've talked to a lender, you don't have enough equity to pull, and you're not ready to move. You're not ready to say, okay, I'm ready to leave my house as a rental. Do you have options? Absolutely, you still do.
All right. So using your current home to make extra income. A lot of people get into it with house hacking. renting out a room in your house, renting out the basement, get your garage into an apartment, Airbnb and short-term rental potential for part of the home if you have a lock-off basement or second living space or something like that.
And also, Darren and I have talked about doing this, and we have never done this, but you could also just think about Airbnb-ing it while you're on vacation. So, right, if you know you're going to be out of town the week of 4th of July, can you get your house listed on Airbnb and rented for that portion? And you can even think about a roommate, right? Getting a roommate, and also storage, right? Do you have property that you could just have some income slots for storage, right? For boats or trailers or whatever. So just think about if you're not quite there yet mentally, but you want to start saving and start learning how to be a landlord and how to run a lease, this might be a really great way if you're feeling more conservative or you're not ready to make a bigger step. And like I said, save that additional income. Don't just use it, right? Save it for your first investment property. We're going to get a little bit into stuff to think about, okay? As far as whether or not you're house hacking and this is your primary house, or if you're going in to enter into buying your first investment property. So even for your primary house, you're going to want to check your HOA, your city, and your county rental regulations and see what is and what is not included. We have a class, Airbnb 101 in this school, guys. So make sure that you go check that out if you're getting serious, especially about the Airbnb portion of that.
Time to know your numbers. We did a previous class, which is available on our site here, called Investor Math 101, which would be a good one to watch as far as learning and knowing your numbers.
And we're going to go into a few of them right here, guys, because you are going to need to have just some basic information. Investor Math anybody should watch that so you can start to figure out your own personal investing strategy. But one of the main things you guys are going to need to know in order to make sure that the math is the rent, right? How much can I rent this house for? Whether you're keeping your house as a rental, whether you're renting out a room in your house, or whether you're buying a new house, right? Guys, we use Zillow. Zillow has a pretty great rent estimate feature. And then also you can go into Rental Meter. We use those two, and you can get really accurate. Rental Meter and Zillow, they both have a map, so you can make sure how close in proximity, how many bedrooms, things like that. So you're really going to want to have a good idea on the rent before you enter. And
then if you are looking at short-term rentals.
Oops, hold on. There we go.
Estimated rent for short-term rentals. STR Insights is a newer site, a lot of people are familiar with. Provides tools to analyze short-term rental income, data as far as occupancy rates, property comparisons, things like that. AirDNA has been around quite a bit longer. Most people are familiar with that in the short-term rental space. Pulls data from Airbnb in certain markets, so you can look at comparable houses, occupancy rates, pricing, things like that. And then a lot of times or if you're in a smaller market, we just use Airbnb and look at comparable houses and look at listings close to any house that we're looking at, as far as comparing beds, baths, finishes, all the improvements in game rooms and pools and things like that. Try to find houses that are similar to the one that you're looking for. What's its occupancy rate? What's it renting for, to get an estimated rental value?
Again, we dig into this way more into the class because short-term rentals are just their whole different game. And so please take a look at that class. Okay, so the two main things, right? You need to know your rent, and then you need to know your mortgage. And so if you have not learned how to run a mortgage calculator, that is a must, even if you are the most new investor. So our favorite two are bankrate.com and mortgagecalculator.org. And so you're going to take the house that you're looking at, right? I would say today, go pick a house, run it through Zillow, run it through Rental Meter, find the rent, and then figure out the mortgage. And that will tell you, okay, if the houses in this area are $300,000 and our mortgage is 15, well, it would be more than that. Let's say the mortgage is 2,000, but they're only going to rent for 1,500. To me, that doesn't math, right? So you really need to run them through the rent and the mortgage calculator. Those are your most two basic resources that you need to get really, really good at in order to run your numbers well.
Yep. And then if you're not planning on self-managing your property, if you're not comfortable with that, property management fees, typically long-term rentals, anywhere between 8 to 12%, really just varies on your market and where you're at. Property management fees for short-term rentals are astronomical, from 10 all the way up to 50% if they're doing linen services and things like that. And the best way, property managers in an area can verify what, average rates are. They're pretty competitive.
We're going to we self-manage everything. Our long-term rentals, our short-term rentals, and we do have an almost full-time employee for our short-term rental business, and she handles messaging, communication with cleaners and handymen. But we didn't do that until we had 8 properties, because our numbers that we've run on our own personal portfolio is we net 25% of the income. We have mortgages on every house. So after mortgages, utilities, all of our operating expenses, the net is 25. So if you paid 10 to 50%, you can see all of a sudden how this business is not mapping and making numbers, and nobody is going to care about your property like you do, guys. Just nobody will. So we're going to highly recommend that you self-manage. And then maintenance and repairs. And so we just want to give you guys a good estimate here. There's a 10% rule, which is 10% of gross rents. So for example, if your rent is $1,500 a month, so $18,000 per year, that would be 10% of $18,000 is $1,800 per year, or $150 per month. So just remember, you're going to want a maintenance budget, right? You can always negotiate repairs and inspection, right? Especially in this market right now, you have a lot more wiggle room to ask for inspection. So just make sure you understand the age of the major components before you enter. And then there's also a 1% rule. So it ends up very close, but you could look at 1% of the property value each year. So if it's a $200,000 property, that's $2,000 a year for repairs and maintenance, or $167 a month. So 2 different ways that you could look at it, but that'll get you ballpark for maintenance.
And that's really for long-term rentals. Like say if you're in the short-term rental space, that number is going to go up just because there's more wear and tear, linens, towels, consumables, things like that. That's in the Airbnb 101 class.
Yep. And so next, I have really been interested in this activation, especially from a biblical perspective, because there is so much in the Bible that's like, if we do our part, then God does his part. So I really, really believe we have to activate, right? Be in prayer. Everybody's situation is different, but don't let your dreams be trapped in your heart, just like I don't want your equity trapped in your home, right? It's time to activate, time to plant the seed, take this step, and trust God with your growth. And we feel like we have been under a huge attack, especially since starting our flipping business, like a spiritual attack, right? We are hitting all kinds of resistance, and we could have easily have given up, guys. We literally had, unfortunately, one of our guys is back on drugs. He told us he closed up a roof at our house. It was not closed up, and it rained in our flip for an entire weekend. So talk about resistance. I also believe that can be a sign that you're on the right path. So don't let resistance always be something that makes you stop. It may be showing you that you are on the right path. So here's some call to action ideas. So you could schedule a call with your lender this week. Before you do anything, have your lender look at your financial position. And then if your lender's like, hey, yes, you could qualify. You could qualify up to a $200,000 rental or a $300,000 second home. Then get with your realtor, right? Start running numbers. How much equity can I have access to? And then the decision again comes back to, are you going to let your seed sit in your barn, or are you going to plant it? Okay. And so I'm going to pray that each and every one of you on here feels the Lord activating your heart towards that extreme stewardship and maximizing what God has given you. So thank you for today. And does anyone have any questions specifically for us or your situation today that we can help you with on the call? Nobody? Okay. Well, we sure hope this was helpful. We would love to hear what activation or what God tells you in regards to this, and we will be praying for you in your investment journey, and please continue to use us for resources. And we are so excited. In a couple of weeks, Quantella one of our realtor friends is going to be on here teaching us about flipping land. So stay tuned. That'll be in a couple of Tuesdays. We should all learn how to flip land. I think it's going to be super exciting. So love you too, guys, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.